They thought they had finally made it. A beautiful neighborhood, friendly neighbors, no more mowing the lawn, no more stairs, no more worries. Then, 3 years later, one retired couple was forced to sell the wedding rings they'd worn for 46 years just to stay in the place they believed would protect them. And they weren't the only ones. At first, nothing looked wrong. In fact, it looked perfect. That's exactly why they never saw the trap. Tonight, we'll follow the true-to-life story of 4 retirees whose dream community slowly became a financial nightmare. Not because of one shocking scam, but because of dozens of tiny decisions they never realized were costing them everything. Stay with us, because one sentence hidden in a contract changed all of their lives. If you're retired or planning to retire, you may have imagined living somewhere exactly like this. Safe, simple, stress-free. But sometimes the greatest financial danger doesn't arrive with flashing warning lights. Sometimes it arrives with fresh cookies at the Welcome Center. This story begins in Central Florida, spring of 2026. Richard Bennett was 73, a retired electrical engineer. His wife, Linda, 71, had spent 35 years teaching second grade. They had carefully saved for retirement, almost $910,000. No debt, 2 grown children, 3 grandchildren. They weren't wealthy, but they believed they had enough, especially after selling the family home. One afternoon, their daughter, Emily, found an advertisement. Luxury retirement living, maintenance-free, predictable monthly costs, age in place. Everything sounded perfect. Even the photos looked comforting. Palm trees, walking trails, book clubs, neighbors laughing over coffee. Emily smiled.
You two deserve this.
Richard smiled back.
I think you're right.
Across town, another future resident was making the exact same decision. George Mitchell, 76, recently widowed, former firefighter, living alone for the first time. His son Daniel worried constantly.
Dad, you'll have people around. You won't be lonely.
George nodded. Loneliness can make almost any promise sound reasonable. Neither family knew they were all about to sign contracts that would slowly become impossible to escape. The perfect tour. The Welcome Center felt like a luxury hotel. Fresh flowers, coffee, cookies, friendly smiles. Community Representative Sarah Collins greeted every visitor by name. She never rushed. She listened. She laughed. She remembered birthdays. It didn't feel like sales. It felt like family. Richard whispered to Linda,
I've never been treated this well.
Sarah walked them through every amenity: pool, fitness center, medical shuttle, emergency response, social events every evening. Then she slid over a glossy brochure. The monthly fee covers almost everything. Almost. Nobody asked what almost meant because nobody wanted to interrupt the dream. George signed his reservation deposit that same afternoon.
I finally feel like I'm home.
Small changes nobody notices. The first year was wonderful. New friends, holiday dinners, weekly card games. Linda joined the gardening club. George began volunteering at the library. Everything felt worth it. Then a letter arrived. Annual operating adjustment. Monthly fee increased, just a little. No one complained. Inflation happens. Months later, another notice. Insurance adjustment, another increase. Then landscaping, then maintenance reserves, then transportation. Each increase seemed manageable, separately. Together, something quietly changed. Richard stopped replacing his old car. George canceled a vacation he'd promised himself after retirement. Nobody connected the dots. Yet. The fine print. Emily visited one weekend. She noticed several thick envelopes on the kitchen table. Richard shrugged. Just paperwork. She looked closer. Fee schedules, policy updates, rule revisions. 38 pages. Emily asked.
Did you read these?
Richard laughed.
I trust them.
Trust. One word. Sometimes the most expensive word in retirement. The hidden costs multiply. A water system assessment, roof reserve contributions, community improvement project, mandatory technology upgrade. Every invoice seemed justified. Every explanation sounded reasonable. Linda quietly began skipping lunches with friends. George stopped attending outings that required extra fees. No one wanted neighbors to know they were struggling. Retirement pride can be expensive. Silence, even more. The new neighbor. A retired accountant named Patricia Evans moved in. Age 68. Sharp. Curious. She asked uncomfortable questions. Why were reserve funds increasing so quickly? Why were contracts changing every year? Why were residents paying for amenities they rarely used? Most people ignored her, until she requested financial records available to residents. The numbers surprised her. Very little was illegal, but many costs had been disclosed in lengthy documents few people fully understood. She began sharing what she found. Quiet conversations spread. Richard needed a minor home repair. He assumed it was included. It wasn't. Linda required additional transportation after a medical procedure. Extra charge. George's monthly budget no longer balanced. For the first time, he withdrew money from savings just to cover recurring living expenses, not emergencies, ordinary bills. That's when Daniel realized something was deeply wrong. The hard conversation. The Bennett family gathered around the dining table. Emily spread every invoice across the table. For the first time, Richard added every recurring cost together. The total stunned him. It wasn't one catastrophic expense. It was years of gradual increases that had quietly changed their retirement. George faced a similar realization with Daniel. Neither family blamed a single person, but both wished they had asked more questions before signing. A different kind of escape. Patricia organized resident meetings. Families attended. Questions became more detailed. Management explained the fee structure. Some policies were revised. Some costs became easier to understand. Not every problem disappeared, but information replaced assumptions. Richard and Linda decided to move closer to Emily. George chose a smaller apartment with lower fixed expenses. Leaving wasn't easy, but staying had become harder. When Richard packed the last box, he paused in the empty living room. He wasn't angry, he was disappointed. Not because retirement communities are always bad. Many provide wonderful places to live. But because he realized something too late. A beautiful neighborhood cannot replace careful questions. George later told Daniel,
I thought I was buying peace of mind. I never realized peace of mind still needed a calculator.
retirement isn't protected by attractive brochures. It's protected by understanding every commitment you'll make after the excitement fades. If this story reminded you of someone you love, share it with them. It may not change the past, but it could change the next decision. Because sometimes the most dangerous financial trap is the one that never feels like a trap until you're already living inside it.